Welcome to episode 2 of Captain Zach's Question Time. I am interviewing this morning Linki, who's one of our new coaches, having just done her coaching in running fitness training and course. So I'm looking forward to some of her answers. So let's get going. Hi, Linki. Can you tell us what brought you into triathlon?
Hi, Georgie. Yeah, sure. It's actually quite a long story. I have been a runner, or long story in years, not in telling. But I've been a runner for about 24 years by now, believe it or not. And it was basically a sad story of overtraining, competing, and injury that brought me into triathlon. I don't think I am the only runner that testifies of that. So about 10 years ago, I was sort of at the peak of my competitive running career. And as many coaches do, just thinks about competition. I was raised like a racehorse every weekend. And massive amounts of training, really, like it was with these African athletes that that you see in the Olympics and stuff. I was not that level, but I was in that sort of club, and didn't really do a lot of adjustments for female runners and people that's not really at that level. So I ended up with a really chronic knee injury that took me out of running for about a year. And in that time, I spent a lot of time just on a gym bike. I didn't cycle at all before then, but just a lot of time on the gym bike, desperately trying to just maintain fitness. So I did really hard sessions on the gym bike and swimming as best as I could, or aqua jogging, just trying to keep fit so that I could enter back into competitions for the running afterwards. But the injury ended up being of the nature that it wasn't something that I would fully recover from ever again. It's quite a chronic knee tendinosis, which is chronic knee tendinitis. And I had to find another way of staying in the sport. I didn't want to give up. And I had a really good friend that was this crazy ultra-marathon runner, and he did triathlons and Ironmans and stuff. And he told me just of an Olympic distance, triathlon distance. And I'm like, you're nuts. I'm just never doing that. Never, no way. But he kept pushing. And after a year on the gym bike, he said, well, just try. I will borrow your bike. Just try. So I gave it a go, and I found like, okay, I'm okay at cycling. I'll worry about the swimming later. And that was the start.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a story. I mean, I would have thought that having seen you on the bike, that you're just a natural cyclist and so strong on the bike.
It's just many hours.
Never have known.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. So hopefully taking part in triathlon then is really supporting you to recover and maintain your sporting fitness with the injury
100%.
that you have that's quite pervasive.
Yeah, 100%. And I would definitely recommend that for anybody that comes from another sport. Having an injury and thinking that's the end of it never has to mean that's the end of you doing sport. It is how determined you are to find a new way. And I mean, I was absolutely no swimmer like most triathletes, I suppose. And it is just about persevering and just rewiring your goals and putting something new in front of you. And you can find that this is actually very rewarding. For me, having the other disciplines coming into it actually keeps it entertaining through the week. It's not just running and running and running, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I must admit that's exactly what I find about triathlon. So thank you for sharing that story. Really interesting. So I suppose that leads on really nicely to your first memories of your triathlon journey, and you sort of shared a little bit about where it all began. So what happened next?
So I mentioned that friend of mine who was this crazy ultramarathon athlete. Now, the sort of club I was in South Africa was used as a winter training base for the European athletes that came in the winter, and for the European winter, which was the South African summer. And they were like very competitive athletes that came over to train there. And it was at altitude and everything was perfect. And my coach was facilitating this training for them. So needless to say, I was surrounded by a lot of these really high-profile professional athletes. Now, one of them was a Dutch Olympic triathlete, and he was good friends with this ultra-marathon runner of mine, friend of mine. And another one was a South African Olympic triathlete. And we were just all friends hanging together. I was not nearly at their level. And they heard I was trying having a go now at triathlon. And they said one Saturday, okay, well, we've heard you've done a lot of cycling, and this friend of yours is happy to lend you his bike. Come with us on a bike ride. We're just going to go out for a bit of a longer ride, but you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You spend a lot of hours. We ended up, me and 3 lads, doing a 90k bike ride on altitude, across hills like that. I was absolutely hanging in there for dear life. It's South Africa. You don't fall behind as a girl because you're just not safe as a girl. I don't know if I've ever been that tired in my life at the end of it. I couldn't sit on that saddle. It was like, okay, well, I suppose if I can do that, I can do anything. So that was just so yeah, very, very ambitious. After that, I sort of paced myself a bit more gradually into it. And then on the swimming front, my first ever race was an open water swim without ever doing open water swimming before. It's South Africa, so non-wetsuit. And there's very good swimmers in South Africa, as you can expect. And we just started in a complete washing machine in a lake where I could not see anything. It was more like a dam. And within 100 meters, I was completely panic-stricken. And I just completed one lap of the swim, and I had such a headache, I think, from all the panic and trying not to drown. After that lap, I got out, and they said, you have to do another lap. I'm like, no, I'm done. I'll carry on with the run and the bike. They said, you're disqualified if you do that. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to run and cycle. So, yeah, I was disqualified, but I finished the run and the bike.
Oh, wow. What a brave soul you are. That's amazing.
Oh, it was horrendous. There's a lot of swimming since then.
Yeah, gosh, and to come back from that as well, because I think we've all been in that sort of washing machine type environment, and I have to say it's my least favourite thing. So yeah, to come back from that and that being your first try, I think that's amazing.
It was a year to recover from that, so it wasn't immediate.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm glad you found our club to practice with.
Yeah, me too.
So you will have had in your career, by the sounds of things, many training sessions. So have you got one that you like to do that is your sort of favourite?
Yeah, I listened to Paul's interview last week and I smiled when he said track running, because I think that is something we definitely have in common, and it's track running. But there's a specific set that we used to do a lot on the track that I absolutely love, and that's pyramids on the track. It's something like 100, 200, 400, 800, 1,000 or something like that, and then back down. For two reasons. I love to just blast it out in the sprint parts and really get those fast muscles going. But then working it up, it feels like you've got a decent endurance session. 1,000 is always a good benchmark to see what sort of time you've got, but there's not the volume. After that, downhill again. So it's all psychologically for me. So yeah, track pyramids, my favorite.
Oh, good. So coming on to that actually brings us quite nicely onto what's your most memorable or favourite triathlon that you've done so far?
Memorable is probably that first one, but I prefer not to call that my favourite. I would say, actually, the first triathlon I've done since that one, where I could finish a swim, because it was like this big barrier for me to know I can actually do a full triathlon. After that horrendous swimming experience, I focused on duathlon for about a year or two and didn't really bother competing. And I just always believed, I can't really be a triathlete, I'm just a duathlete. And then I came to England in 2011, and I lived in Hertfordshire, and the St Albans Triforce hosted the HSV triathlon in the pool in Hatfield. And I thought, that's a safe environment. I'm going to try and do the sprint with this pool 400 meters swim I can do. And I was so scared, really. It was literally my first triathlon I tried again since that experience. And I ended up winning the race. And what it did for my confidence at that, it was just like, I went in there, not sure I'm going to finish the swim. And then it went like that. And I was like, I can maybe call myself a triathlete, not just a duathlete. So I thought that was really special. It was just that mental thing for me. It's like, no, I can do this. I just need to persevere.
Well, look at you now, crikey, qualifying in the Worlds, Linki. Wow.
Just persevere.
Just persevere, exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. So obviously you've done quite a lot of competitions now. So what would be your piece of kit that you can't live without?
I'd say on a generic level, a decent pair of trainers. I really found that my running shoes can make or break it. You can have like an uncomfortable pair of cycling shoes and you sort of can still bike. But without decent running shoes, the discomfort and the injury that can come from that, whether you do it just within a race or over a longer period of time, I cannot stress enough how important it is to have the right shoes. And especially also in races, we tend to look for lighter shoes in races, But when you have a lighter shoe, there's certain things you give up in a normal running shoe, like the support you have around your ankles, or something I found, which is a bit more on a technical level, but it really made a big difference for me, was the thickness of your sole at the back, the heel to toe drop, they call it. So for racers, it can often be a very flat shoe. And for some runners, that's good. But for me, it caused a lot of cramps during races. And it was revolutionary when I found a racing shoe that had just a bit more of a heel to toe drop. So I would say just really make sure that you're comfortable in the shoes that you race in, and don't go with a new shoe to a race. And then together with that, in the running, something I found really valuable is compression socks. I have a bit of a history of calf trouble as well, and compression socks really made a difference for me to help that just your calf muscles to get all that lactic back back to your heart, basically, to get clean blooding.
Oh, thank you for that. That's really interesting, actually. I went through a period myself of wearing compression socks, and I haven't worn them for a while. You're making me
they're
think
not
I need
nice
to
to
them
wear.
out.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't train with them because they're so tight, but I do find this genuine benefit for me. It's everyone for himself. I wouldn't say it's the same for everybody, but I found real benefit in them.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much. So that sort of leads on really nicely again to what's your triathlon top tip?
Well, there's a few things, but I think when it comes to racing, because ultimately we're trying to get to racing, I'd say we discussed this a bit in the Friday Q&A sessions as well, but it's just plan your race every step of the way. What I do is when I prep for my race, when I pack my kit the day before, I plan through every step of the race, mentally go through it all, visualize it. When I'm in transition, I visualize myself coming out of the water. What do I need? What do I need to put up? And then what's important is just before I get out of the one discipline into the next one, I start thinking what I'm going to do in transition and tell myself what the step's going to be, because I find that once you're into transition, you're quite flustered actually, and you're so rushed to try and do it. So it's happened a few times in the beginning for me that I would forget. Oh yeah, that's what I did. I put my bike on the rack when I came in, but I forget to take my helmet off, and then I run. And just as I tried to run out of transition, Marshall stopped me and said, "You need to take your helmet off." It's like, I don't, just run with it. Like, no, go back, take it off. So little things like that, but just rehearsing in your mind how you're gonna go into transition and what you need to do, and also prep that when you set up your transition really makes a difference.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one to have had that experience. I think we definitely live and learn, don't we? We definitely.
It will be a safe run, that I can say for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, thanks for that. Well, actually, that's probably partly what's the one thing you've learned not to do in a race?
Yeah, probably that.
Is wear your helmet off the bike.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can say another thing definitely is not in the race, but just before the race, not to warm up. I find that because triathlon can be quite a long race, especially if you Olympic distance or longer, and because you start with the swim, you tend to think it's not necessary to warm up because you've got to be warm after the swim for the bike, or say it's not the same muscles. I did find a big difference in my performance if I actually did a decent warm up. And I find myself actually at races often one of the few people that's warming up. I don't see many people when I'm out on my longer runs around the course and so on. But there's real value in arriving early enough, get your kit ready, get yourself calm, but then just go for a long, easy jog, not long, but decent warm up for yourself. Do your stretches. Those muscles are not the muscles that you're going to use in the swim. And it, at least to an extent, they're still warmed up by the time you arrive on your bike or on your run. Otherwise, you just find you completely seize up when you get out of the water. And now you try and run at pace or cycle at pace on muscles that's not being warmed up at all.
That's a really good point, actually. A really good point. Yeah, thank you for that. So what's been your biggest challenge in the sport, and how have you overcome it?
Apart from swimming, I think we touched on that one in the beginning. I'd say, and for anybody that is seeing me running, it's my running form. It's horrendous. Like, it's a real big problem. And as I've said in the beginning, I've been a runner for about 24 years. It's not something you just unlearn. And I really want to give the club a big kudos for that one, because LV was the first club in my life where I came, where people actually started paying attention to my form and form in general for athletes, and say, you know what, this is the sort of things you do to try and correct your form. We take it for granted maybe being in this club, but it's definitely not. And I think I'm a walking example of bad form and injuries that came as a result of that. And a nemesis for me, I would really call it that these days, is really chronic injury problems I have as a result of that poor running form. And I struggle to fix those, because it's not something like I just go to physio and it's fine. I need to often learn to run with the pain that comes as a result of those injuries, simply because they're not just going to go away. It's years and years of injuring and wrong running. So if I could just reset that button, it would be wonderful. But I'm working on it.
Oh, good for you. Keep persevering. I know how hard you try, so because I see you at the track. So keep it up. Keep it up.
Getting it from the drills into the actual running form is two different things.
Yeah. I've been trying that this afternoon, and it's definitely two different things.
Oh, yeah.
So who in the triathlon community then, bearing in mind how many athletes you will have met in your career, who in the triathlon community has been the person that you kind of admired, thought a lot of, have taken on board advice and that kind of thing?
I'd say it's probably that friend, that ultramarathon friend that I talked about in the beginning, who really inspired me. He himself was like a Comrades Marathon silver medalist in South Africa, and a real grafter when it came to everything, Ironman athlete and everything. But it was more than that. It was just his mental attitude towards these really hard sessions and persevering. And he passed a bit of that on to me. When the running injury happened, in the competitive environment I was in, it was a bit like, okay, you're written off now, carry on. And he was the one that came to me to say, you know what, try something else. I think you can be good at this. And I don't think we should underestimate the value of mentorship. Like I've been in an environment of wonderful physical ability and coaching, but that mentorship was not always there. But this was just a friend that came to me in a time when I was just physically not able anymore, and said, you know what, I think you can do this, and keep pushing at it. And then he started a club at the university where I was at, and he started coaching us because there was just nobody else to do it. And I took a lot of tips from him, and he lent me his bike for the first 2 years to say, you know what, if you don't want to spend money on the sport, I couldn't afford it. Just take what I've got and go, and just have a go and have a try. And I ended up being a lot better at it than I thought I would have been. But if it wasn't for him, it would never happen. So, and I told people the story of me and my dad doing that race when I just joined this club. And it was the same guy that went to my dad in South Africa and gave him that same bike in the beginning to say it was a huge bike. So I was a bit overstretching, but then that fit my dad, luckily. And he lent me my dad his bike and said, you know what, just if you go. And that resulted in me and my dad doing that triathlon together. So, yeah.
Gosh, that's a really powerful story, Linki.
Yeah, sometimes just a friend to come along on the way.
Yeah, definitely. I hope you're still in touch, are you?
I am, definitely, very much.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. That's good. So lastly, what's your favourite thing about coaching? Obviously, you're sort of at the beginning, I suppose, of your coaching career. So what do you like about it so far?
I think what I loved about the training before I came in here is just the explanation why we do things we do, how we split sessions up, how you plan as a coach. As Paul also said in his interview, like the effect on the body and how these things came together, how our energy systems work, understanding why we do the sessions we do. But more than that, for me, the reason why I joined coaching is I just wanted to pay forward a little bit of all what people put into me, and seeing people flourish under that. If you put some hours in and seeing people that couldn't do something before now finally being able to do it, and that satisfaction and that reward and the joy that comes from it, and just the fun element, being able to contribute to people, the fun, not just that it's just all serious.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. I mean, let's hope we can get back out there, back to track, and back to doing the things that we love. But it's been really interesting talking to you tonight. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing your stories. And it's been really, really interesting. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to press stop.